Hey you beautiful lovers of African cinema. Today we're reviewing A Tribe Called Judah, the 2023 box office hit, smash, whatever you want to call it, from the stables of Funke Akindele. Yes, this movie made box office history as not only the highest grossing Nollywood movie of all time, but the first ever to cross the 1 billion naira mark. And now it's found its first streaming home on Prime Video. You're here, welcome. Please do me a favor, like this video. It's a little thing, but it helps me out a great deal. Also, it tells YouTube that you like my videos, and so it pushes them to you and takes away a lot of the guesswork. And you know something else that helps me? When you subscribe. Speaking of subscribing, after my last video, I hit the 500. I hit and crossed the 500 subscribers mark. And guys, when I tell you I was excited and so grateful, I can't tell you guys, just each and every one of you who subscribed to my channel, you got me there. Thank you so much. Please stick with me as I continue to grow and bring your friends and family along. I appreciate you guys. All right, A Tribe Called Judah. A Tribe Called Judah is written by Funke Akindele, Akinlabi, Ishola, and Collins Oko, and is directed by Funke Akindele and Adeoluwa Owu. Synopsis. For its synopsis, it says, the Judah family, led by the audacious Mama JJ, faces a crisis as Jedediah develops renal failure. Sons from different fathers and tribes unite to raise funds. Emeka's job loss leads to a risky plan encountering real robbers. Despite success in raising money, they must navigate legal consequences and mourn a brother's loss. Okay, let's talk A Tribe Called Judah. Little preamble. I entered this movie with a mix of emotions and I guess diverging expectations. For one thing, I don't trust popular movies. I'm sorry, I just don't. For another, I never quite know what to expect with Funke Akindele movies. I'm not always a fan. Why am I wearing this ring that's just hanging so awkwardly on my finger? I'm sorry. I'm not always a fan, and on the other hand, I don't know. I always enter movies expectant and hopeful because I'm always rooting for us, and by us I mean our film industry. And also, especially when I haven't heard anything to the contrary, as with this movie, I hadn't actually heard any. In fact, everything that I heard was good. But then again, like I said, skeptical until I see the movie for myself. So what I did on entering this movie was I threw a dry rag over my skepticism, mopped it up, and entered this movie with no preconceived notions. And boy, am I glad that I did. A Tribe Called Judah stars and features a list of very popular names and faces. Let's see how quickly I can run through this list. Funke Akindele, JideKene, Achufusi, Uzee Usman, Timini Egbuson, Tobi Makinde, Olumide Oworu, Nse-Ikpe Etim, Uzor Arukwe, and they need to correct the spelling of his name on Prime Video. Is spelled wrong. Ebele Okara, Genevove Umeh, Fathia Balogun, Nosa Alex, Gregory Ojefua, Ibrahim, Yekini, Itele, Etinosa Idemudia, Babseun Faseru, Juliana Olayode, Simi Hasssan, Pascaline Alex, Yvonne Jegede, Boma, Akpore. And if you think that list is long, you haven't seen the list for the supporting cast. What I really liked about this is that on screen, it didn't seem that obvious, which actually speaks a lot to how well spaced character introductions and appearances were, to which it never felt crowded. Let's get straight to it, guys. What worked? Cast and performances. Everyone did great. So, I'm not going to try to go through the entire list. They all did great. Sorry, sometimes my earring will just fall off and I don't know. However, I want to highlight Uzor Arukwe. I know I've mentioned in the past that he's getting, or at this point has gotten, typecast. But what does it matter, if he does it well? I mean, The Rock is The Rock in every movie, right? That said, I do hope though that he takes a break from roles like this, because as good as he is in roles like this, he's actually a really versatile, very diverse actor. So, but I think he does spread his wings quite a bit. So let him just take a break from these kinds of roles. But he was amazing. I think the main issue with me here in this particular movie was that I just saw Bank Alert, and it didn't help that his costuming, and I'm reviewing Bank Alert next, by the way, it didn't help that his costuming, his mannerisms, even the lingo, he did say one nay here few times, which was his main language there in Bank Alert. So just that similarity, I didn't really like it, especially watching them back to back, no fault of his. Then two other actors that I'm going to mention for a very specific reason is that historically, I don't always like them. I really went hard a little bit on Genevove Umeh in, actually that was the character, not the actor. So what am I saying? It was the character, but it made me not like the actor, I guess, a little bit. That can happen. And I usually have a lot of issues with Timini Egbuson. So both of them, I'm so happy to say that I loved them. I adored them in this movie. So that's always a good thing. I love when a movie changes my mind about a person, cast or crew, a writer, or just whoever. The rest of the cast, they did exactly. Actually, I'm going to mention Funke Akindele. I do have a small criticism down the line, but she was also really, I mean, it's Funke, right? But she does deserve her flowers for so many reasons for this particular movie. But this is the performance section, and she did really well. Everyone was just great. So they did what they needed to do, and they did it exceedingly well. And that speaks a lot to the directing as well. I love the chemistry just in the performances, and I love how controlled the actors were, that no one tried to act over or overshadow each other. They all seemed very comfortably in their roles, in their relationship, especially the brothers, the family. It all looked very authentic. Let's just say that they played off each other very beautifully. Direction was good. So the direction of the actors specifically as far as directing, but also, and let me tie the rest of this, which is the camera work and all of that, to the cinematography. Barney and Mordy cinematography was also really good and quite intentional. So I loved that as well. I had no real issues with the technical aspects. A lot of the things just looked very thoughtfully and intentionally done. The music was odd at times, but it never really overshadowed the story, even if sometimes it didn't really sync with the action in the scenes that was going on, but it wasn't terrible. Much of the soundtrack was also good. There were some odd choices, I'm going to say that. Still, there was nothing offensive or off-putting. I enjoyed the mix of languages. We had Hausa, we had Yoruba, we had Pidgin, of course. I don't know what other languages, but it's always nice. I know that some people, like in other countries, they brag, oh, I'm bilingual. The typical Nigerian is probably we're all, what is that term? Sorry, I can't remember that term. Last time, my last review, I spent a lot of time trying to remember lobotomy. I'm not doing it here. Words don't always come to me when I need them. I know it's a P word. Hey, I'm about to do it. Pearl, stop. I can't remember it. Dialogue and dialogue delivery was excellent. It was really fluid and natural. Production design was excellent as well. First of all, the story world was expansive and it felt really immersive. So that's something that we don't get to take for granted. This movie had plenty of real estate, but not in a way that was showy. This movie really traveled from, the lived spaces to the ghetto to the mall, that showroom. It was just so well done, but not like Simi, like, oh, this is a look at us in this location. It didn't have that vibe. It just was very, and I'm going to say something about that when I'm done with speaking about just production value. The sets in particular were really well done. The living spaces felt exactly like that, living spaces. That furniture business and showroom was what I wanted for Afamefuna. If you guys remember what I said in that review about what I would have liked to see when Afam had come into his own. If you haven't seen that review, please check it out and, whatever. The costumes were also really good. I was watching for Uzor Arukwe the way I watched for Swanky Jerry in Young, Famous and African. That's the way I was watching for Uzor Arukwe's different costumes in this movie. Also, the costume and all of that for the heist was just hilarity. Loved it. As was the makeup as well, or as did I also love the makeup, especially Funke's makeup. Her looks, the way they transformed after she had the stroke, it was just really well done. In general, art direction was good, and I love the look of this film. I really do. It did look cinematic. A lot of effort was put into that, which is really good visuals for this movie. So yes, I liked the movie, the look of the movie a lot. Overall, I loved the understated confidence of this production. So let's get to the story and the script, all of that. The character writing, first of all, was beautiful. Starting with character introduction, right away you knew whom everybody was, and just that creativity of, I had a criticism about that I remember now, the last last movie I reviewed was Head Over Bills, and I remember referencing this movie in that review to say what they tried to do in that movie, they got it right here. So like I said, right away you knew whom everybody was. The way they came together too as a unit while also retaining their very specific and individual personalities was really good characterization. I feel like if you did a pie chart of the major characters in this movie, you would find that they got pretty much about the exact percentage of screen time. So I really liked that. That's when you say an ensemble cast, that's how we should feel. The story was simple, the dialogue was good, and the plot events for the most part were well thought out and structured. There was a bit of comedy and a whole lot of heart. You were under no illusions how this family felt about each other. So that goes to the heart. And then speaking of dialogue, in the credits, I saw that they had dialogue editors, and that made me so happy. And it showed in the dialogue, right? I liked the heist, even starting with the planning. And that's something I always like. I think I had a criticism of that. For the Black Book, I think it was praise. I can't remember the movie that I criticized. I think, okay, no, I haven't reviewed that movie, but it was Gangs of Lagos. Yeah, I didn't like, the planning, how they were going to execute the plan or whatever. So I really liked that here. The fight sequences were really good, as were the the body, like physical fighting, and then also the gunfight. They did really good. They were well choreographed, and you saw actual stuff getting destroyed. We don't take that for granted. You guys know what I'm talking about. Another thing that I really loved about this movie was that little crazy, stupid love story between Ejiro and Testimony. It was just funny, sweet, unhinged, and utterly believable. I found myself rooting for them. At the end, when they were leaving and she was running to the canoe, me, as I was watching the movie, I was screaming, "Stop the canoe! Stop it! Now! She's a family member. So, but what I love most about that love story is that it was integral to the plot. Not just, oh, okay, we have the movie we want. I guess we need a love story. No, it didn't feel that way. It felt like this very much a part of, and it was used. You saw how effectively it tied into the main story or the main plot. Not by the way, this movie needs a love story. Now, the final thing in this section, and this is not directly related to this movie, but I felt a pang about the whole renal failure plot point, and that's because, as some of you know, I've talked about it here a few times, my friend Jason Abaga, he's been struggling with end-stage kidney failure, and as the movie really laid out, not only do you have to look for money for the actual surgery, the transplant, you also have to pay for dialysis every day, hospital visits. I cannot imagine the bill. I just can't. So anyway, there's a GoFundMe. I've posted that link a few times on this channel, so please, could you click on that link? If this movie made you feel and you're looking for a way to release that feeling, I promise you, after you go make your donation, you will feel catharsis, okay? But just if you could, I'd really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Now, that brings me to the end. Have you liked this video? Have you liked it? Please do. And if you're not subscribed, now is a good time. At this point, you can already tell that you like my face and that you're going to be a repeat customer. So just subscribe, okay? Thank you. Let's get to what did not work. I'm so happy to tell you that I don't have very much to complain about. You guys, I know sometimes when I'm going really hard, it seems like that's the part all these reviewers, like all these critics, they like, no, we love when a movie works. So let's get to what did not work. And like I said, not very much to complain about, but let's just talk about things that could have been done better. Now, the technical aspects I was mostly okay with. Most of it is going to be the story. Let's talk about the very first thing that struck me as odd was that exposition about the many husbands of Mama Judah, when it just gave the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo, if you've read that book, and then explaining about children who were responsible and why or whatever, it was unnecessary. We love them. We love these Judas, as she said, we love them. Funke, she could have used a bit more directing. She was one of the directors, but when it came to her scenes, I think she could have left the mantle to someone else. She does tend to go overboard in her performances, and there was a bit of that here. A few plot points were dropped. One was the marriage, that whole marriage engagement, whatever, with Adamu, that was just completely forgotten. Also, we never knew, it wasn't resolved what happened to Emeka's body. Where was it? And then Uzor Arukwe, he was questioned by the police, and we knew that they were going to come back. But that was, I'm not saying that this movie should have continued into that investigation. I'm just saying more like it should never have even happened at all. Those are some of the scenes. There are a few scenes scenes that I feel that should not even have happened at all. There were a few instances of plot convenience, not enough to be very mad, but there were a few instances of just plot convenience and plot contrivance and connivance or whatever. The pacing in this movie could have been better. There were a few scenes, honestly, I've already said, that could have been done away with. For instance, that whole scene with Adamu's, that whole story on arc, honestly, I know that the point of it was just that he wants to know his father or whatever, but it was just too much screen time for something that really ultimately did not even matter. That whole questioning of Nse-Ikpe's character after the heist that led us into all that backstory, I really could have done without it, honestly. For one thing, she did not even need to be part of the robbers. Maybe they wanted to give her some more screen time and action. I was fine with how much she had, and she could have just remained in the role of an informant, and maybe Yvonne Jegede would have had the chance to shine more. Funke Akindele, I think she got way too much screen time, considering that this movie was more about the boys than her. So I didn't like that she took up that much screen time. But also Uzor Arukwe, I think he was funny. It was good to see. Like I said, I already liked his humor, but he talked way too much. The camera smashing thing, it could have just been a montage that lasted like 5 seconds. We didn't need to see them smash all 20 cameras. We got the point. So there was just a lot of time wasted in the beginning with many of these things, so that the inciting incident ended up not happening until maybe around the 40-minute mark. It was way too late into the story. Then the movie's ending, that entire like third act, it could have been better. Act, I don't know. I was rooting hard for them to escape, but some of the things that also happened in that portion just did not make sense. For instance, who threw the acid? How did they know where the Judas were going to conveniently be like tracking them and waiting for them? Just in general, the third act was slow. So after the heist, the rest of it actually felt like just marking time for the escape. So I wished, ultimately that the escape had maintained the same tension that had been generated with the heist. The ending just ended up feeling a little bit anticlimactic. Now, another thing is, while I didn't, and this goes to just emotional storytelling, while I liked that they didn't dwell too much on the grief of Emeka's passing, because I remember being a bit anxious when I knew that character was going to die, because Twitter spoilers, when I knew that, I was like, whoa, these boys, this family who like each other like this, how are they going to handle grief within the rest of this story? So I do like that they didn't spend too much time on that. However, I did not like that I didn't feel his passing very much. It was more like just a twinge that I felt, but it was very easily dismissed, which was a shame, because that family reminds me very much of my family. My family, if one person is sick, everybody is sick. My siblings were like this. So I can't imagine that one of them died, and I know that they grieved, but I'm not talking about, I could see the grief within them, but I couldn't feel the emotions within myself, if that makes sense. So I don't know if it's because, first of all, I didn't even like that character that well. Not, how do I say this? Not the writing. The writing for the character was good enough that I did not like the character, which I would say that was probably intentional. Nobody likes a goody two-shoes like that. You know what I mean? So anyway, just missing emotional beats, that opportunity for emotional beats that was sort of squandered, I guess. This movie had a runtime of 135 minutes, and I really think that with tighter plotting, this script could have been shorter. But that's about it for things that I did not like. So in conclusion, I'm just going to say that I did not feel like this movie was trying to teach me any lesson or force any lessons down my throat. It just had a story to tell. It did, and then exited stage. That's pretty much it. I really appreciated that. Now, is this a repeat watch? Not for me. It was difficult to watch in one setting. I'm not gonna lie. It was kind of slow. I did get distracted a lot, especially in the first half before the heist and also towards the end. That said, after that slow build up, it did really pick up the pace, and they ended beautifully. Even though I did not enjoy the plot events in the third act as much as I would have liked, it was still a very good and entertaining viewing. And yes, it was quite emotional in places. This movie felt really wholesome and endearing, and I came away feeling like I really understood why people loved it and why it did as well as it did. And that's away from just the Funke Akindele star power. In places, it tugged at the heartstrings. Just a simple story, like I said, told simply, believably, and unassumingly. Was it a comedy? Not necessarily. I would recommend this movie, absolutely, wholeheartedly I would, and that includes my non Nigerian friends, because that's not always a thing. Because also, this is such an authentic Nigerian story. Hashtag this is us. I loved that. My final note is on Funke Akindele. I started out saying I don't always like her movies, or rather, I'm not always sure what to expect. But if this movie showed me anything, is that this is one filmmaker who's not resting on her laurels. She keeps striving to be better, and this movie showed that so clearly. And she has only my compliments and admiration for this project. And as always, Funke knows her fan base really well. She knows her audience very well. But this movie felt like she widened that embrace to encompass more people than her assumed fan base and audience, and that was great. Let me just say that I never throughout watching this had to ask where is the heart of this filmmaker, as I often have to do. It was present and very visible in every part of this movie. So I'm going to say that this was a great start to the second quarter. I predict interesting times at the AMVCA next year. Whew. Wow, that felt like running a race. That's all for A Tribe Called Judah, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're still here. Thank you. If this review has been of value to you, please don't leave without subscribing, and please check out my other videos. Of course, also, I'd like to hear your thoughts, even the ones that are contrary to mine, in the comments. So please share your views. Also, share this video with your friends and family so that you guys can discuss my reviews and how much you love me. There's going to be a short version of this review in the description below, so just check a link to that, so just check that out as well. Guys, normally I would ask you, do you like my marquee? But I'm not even going to ask that this time, because what I really wanted to do for this video was to paint a keke napep. I had painted a funny one a few days ago, about a week or two ago. I wasn't even thinking of this movie. I didn't even know that a keke napep featured in this movie. So when I saw that keke, immediately I was like, oh, I can make a proper, because that one I just painted it on paper. So I was like, I can make a proper keke, whatever, and use as my marquee instead, or even my wall art. But I ran out of time. I'm so sorry. So manage my marquee, okay? Guys, you have the right to an incredible viewing experience, so never settle. Thank you.